Alright, man. So, can you go ahead and like justify why the argument's gonna be like holding some form of like truth between just go ahead and justify it, I guess. So go ahead.
Well, yeah, I can't remember because I remember making a formalization of it, but I can't remember the formalization off the top of my head.
I think I
But
remember. It was basically you arguing since the Quran had contingent propositions and Allah is supposed to be a necessary being, it basically is like I'd say it's like a form of his speech, and speech is like an attribute and has these contingent propositions. We could say that this establishes a constructed state of affairs with the essence of Allah. Therefore, since it's contingent, it would basically just destroy the model of ontology of Allah's, absolute divine simplicity type structure. It basically makes where he can fail because he's supposed to be perfect. It would make him fail. Basically, just make him contingent instead of a necessary being.
I don't think that's exactly what I was trying to argue there. Because I believe that it's entirely I don't believe that it's metaphysically possible that unless that God could have contingent parts, but I believe that it's theoretically possible that God could have contingent parts, and so I believe that the aim of the argument.
What do you define as
Yeah,
like metaphysical possibility?
what did you say?
What do you think a metaphysical possibility is?
Yeah, so when I refer to metaphysical possibility, we could just use some conceivability thesis. So you can just say that X is metaphysically possible if and only if X is ideally conceivable.
So what do you think a theoretical situation is? Like, would you describe it
Yeah,
as
so
like?
when I talk about a theoretical possibility, all I'm just talking about is possibilities that don't map onto reality, but seemingly don't have any contradiction present in them. So, for example, um, think of Einstein's theory of not Einstein's theory. Think of like the Big Crunch theory, right? The Big
Yeah,
Crunch theory.
I get what you're saying. I get what
Yeah,
you're saying. Okay,
yeah. So
so
all I'm saying,
like
yeah.
we
So all I'm saying in relation to the argument is that I don't. The aim of the argument or the aim of the conclusion wasn't to demonstrate that Islam is false because God can't have contingent proper parts. No, the aim of the argument was to show that since the God has the Quran as an essential attribute of Himself, so He has the Quran as an essential attribute of Himself, and so if He has the Quran as an essential attribute of Himself, and some parts of the Quran are contingent, then that obviously means by transitivity that He has essential contingent parts. Now, I disagree with God being able to have. I think that it's theoretically possible for God to have accidental contingent parts, but I don't think it's theoretically possible for God to have essential contingent parts. But that's what Islam implies. Well, at least the form of Islam that I'm attacking.
okay, so I'll just go ahead and type the argumentation. I don't think attacking the metaphysical possibility thing is going to be like my main point here. So I don't believe the Quran holds as like a property of Allah, nor do I think there could be essential properties and almost like conditional accidental properties. I'm gonna ask you to like go ahead and prove that this.
Wait. Do you not think that the Quran is a? Do you not think that the Quran is in a sense? Do you not think that the Quran is a part of Allah?
Well, wait. I don't. I'm just gonna ask you. Can you go ahead and prove that the Quran is gonna hold as like some form of property to the model of ontology
Like
of
I
Allah?
just no, because I just wanted to know is the Quran a part of Allah?
I don't necessarily like think that Brennan. I mean, you're the one who's asserting the assertion that it's gonna be a part of his essence, right? That would only imply that you think.
No, I'm just no because no
No.
the type of wait,
Oh,
one sec.
okay.
The type of Islam that I'm attacking is the type of Islam that holds that the Quran is a part of Allah, right? So I'm
Wait,
attacking
so
that
what's that
that
sect of Islam then? What's that sect of Islam then?
Wait, hold on, wait. I have
section.
a question. Seiba, are you a Metazilite?
What'd you say? I didn't hear you.
Are you a Metazilite?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm just gonna
I
continue
said,
my response.
are you a Metazilite?
I'm gonna mute you right now. Sorry, I'll like unmute you after the debate.
Nigga, what?
Uh, So what's the sect of Islam? Can you repeat that?
Yeah, so all I'm saying is just that there are types of Islam which, well, there are creeds of Islam, Aqidas, that do say that the Quran is a part of Allah, like the Quran is.
I'm asking for like the identifier as to what those sects are that hold the Quran as like a property, or rather,
Well, I
like
guess it could be like, I guess it could be like in between sects, right? So I guess like the Atharis could hold this and the Asharis could hold this. I guess that the Sufis could hold this, like literally anybody. Obviously, I'm pretty sure it wouldn't be a problem, except for sects that are just affiliated with divine simplicity or hold to some form of divine simplicity. I don't see any problem with. I think that the belief is mostly present in the Athari tradition. I haven't really seen it in the Ashari or the Sufi tradition, but yeah.
like
And I'm basically saying, wait one sec. I'm basically saying that, well, so I'm basically just using reductio ad absurdum. So I'm basically just assuming that that premise is true. That what's it called again? That the Quran is a proper part of Allah, and then I'm basically saying that, well, if the Quran is a proper part of Allah, then it follows that the Quran has that Allah has some parts which are essential to Him and which are also contingent.
Yeah, that's like if it is, but you also said you're pretty sure that the what was it, the Athari, I think, or the Ashari? Like, can you repeat that again?
Yeah, I think that the belief is more predominant in the Athari tradition.
Can you go ahead and like show how that's gonna be like the case, please? Because like what you said from earlier. Wait, hold on. What you said from earlier, right? Pretty sure I'm tracking right. If not, I'm like totally rusty. But what you said is that since you're using the ad reductio, the assumption that premise is going to be true, then it would follow the rusty argument where it like shows that it's like a proper path of Allah's ontology. So if this belief is held true within the Ashari, we could say the Ashari follows that. But I'm going to ask you, can you go ahead and show some form of substance as like how that is the case?
Wait one sec. Well, no, my fault. I don't think the tradition is more present in the Atharis. I think it's more present in like the Asharis, because I think that the Ashari just hold that the Quran is uncreated, the Quran is eternal, and to resolve so when they say that to like Christians, for example, Christians will hit them with some kind of reductio ad absurdum, saying that, well, only Allah is uncreated and eternal, and then they'll go ahead and say that, well, we can resolve that issue by simply saying that the Quran is an attribute of Allah. And since Allah is eternal and uncreated and all his attributes are eternal and uncreated, there is no problem there. So I think that the belief is more present in the Ash'ari tradition. I don't know what kind of data. I could like show you some quotes from some famous Ash'aris, but I don't know
I don't
what
necessarily
data I
believe
could show
that.
you.
I don't believe that the quotes from like some famous scholars from the Ansari school and all that really like goes ahead and like gives some form. I
Yeah,
mean,
I'm attacking a specific form of Islam, which is the type of Islam that holds that the Quran is an attribute of Allah.
yeah. So I asked you to like give some form of substance as to why this could be the case earlier, right? I'm asking you to prove how they hold this belief, or like that.
I don't know what type of data I'm going to show you. Like there is no consensus out there. It's literally just a part of. It's literally just from what you can read. So again, just to reiterate this, the
Wait, so
Asharis believe. Wait, one sec. The Asharis believe that the Quran is uncreated and eternal. Now, to resolve the issue of there being two uncreated and eternal beings, namely the Quran and Allah, our God, they'll just say that the Quran is an attribute of Allah. Since saying that the Quran is an attribute of Allah means that we're not actually affirming the Quran is its own separate being, but that the Quran subsists in another being. And so that's just the line of reasoning that the Asharis use.
we get that, right? But I'm asking like what you said earlier. There's like no form of consensus. So like what you're basically saying is it's just dependent on interpretation, right? Yes or no?
I don't think it's in part of the interpretation. I think that it's in a sense. I think that it's a big part of the Ashari creed. Like I could get you Asharites who, I could get you some Asharites who affirm this in their writings, I guess.
So basically, you just went ahead and said there's like no like big consensus which agrees upon it, where you could show me, and then
No,
you just say
yeah, there is no big consensus, but again, I can get you Asharites who affirm this. Like
It's like a P and not P kind of. I think
it's not. Where's the contradiction?
the contradiction is you saying there's no big consensus. Then you sit there and say that there is going to be some famous big consensuses which we can use
No, I
here.
never said that there was a big. Wait, one sec. I never said that there was a famous big consensus. I said that I can get you some Asharis, some predominant Asharis. For example, yes, some predominant Asharis who affirm this. I'm not saying that there's a consensus on how many people affirm this or not. I'm saying that I can get you some famous Asharis who affirm this, and therefore
Yeah.
show you that there are Asharis who affirm that view.
Yeah, that's basically what a consensus is when they make multiple like some forms like judgments rather
That's
than
not what a consensus is.
what's a consensus? Can you go ahead and define that?
A consensus is when you have a specific group of people who generally agree on some proposition, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm simply just saying that whereas there may be some Asherites who do not agree with what the other Asherites are saying, I'm just saying that at least some predominant Asherites do believe, at least some, I'm not saying all, I'm not even saying most, I'm just saying some of them believe that.
You don't want to forget that, but like
Yo,
basically, then that's
like,
basically still a
What did you say?
consensus. And then you
That's,
just
that's not what a consensus is.
wait,
Just
Rizzhan,
know
can
what
I
it
ask
is.
you guys something?
when people make the judgment upon a proposition, if they're affirming that belief, they're affirming the existent truth claim of that belief. What are you talking about?
This guy's chatting.
That's
Look,
not what a
Rizzhan.
consensus is.
Hey, Rizzhan.
Yeah, but the
Look at
definition
what
you
we're talking
proposed
about.
was a group of people supporting a proposition where they make a verdict upon it, right?
No,
Like
I said that, we have a group of people, and those group of people, or a wide portion of those group of people, agree on on um on
you never
what's it
said
called?
anything. You never said anything about a wide group of people. You just said a group
No,
of
no,
people.
I did say that. Like
Goalpost.
for example, if we have the Asharis, and for example, let's say we have the Asharis, and the Asharis, there's a wide consensus of Asharis that say that, or there's a wide group of Asharis that say that X is true, then there's a consensus that within the Asharis that X is true. I'm not saying that there's a consensus within the Asharis that that is true. I'm simply just saying that there are notable Asharis who think that's true, which is different from a consensus.
Yeah, so that's basically what's called a large group of consensus. A consensus
It's
can
not a
vary on.
large group. I'm just saying that there's some notable. I'm saying that there's notable Asharis. I'm not saying that there's a large group of them. I'm saying there's notable Asharis who believe this.
Listen, I get that. What I was saying is that it's still gonna be like a consensus. Like even what you're referring to is just a large group of people who form that specific size of a consensus. A consensus could be multiple people. Like say for example, there's a debate going on, right? And there's 7 people who are watching this debate, right? And they give their verdict, right? Like say for example, they give the same verdict on, let's just say rizzhan versus the collector down here, right? They all say rizzhan beat the fuck out of this guy, and they make that judgment. And there's only 7 people. We could sit there and say that that's still going to be a consensus because there's multiple people adding to that, right? So then I'm just going to conjunct this and have like a relationship with the. Okay, pause. By the way,
You're not
no.
understanding what I'm saying. Like, oh
Wait,
my
what do
god,
you mean?
like, wait,
Oh,
see, but you're just talking past. You're talking past what I'm saying. Okay, you can affirm that within that small group of Asharis there is a consensus, but what I'm saying is that within the scope of Asharis. So when we talk about all Asharis, I'm not making a claim that there is a consensus or not. I'm simply making a claim that there are famous Asharis who may affirm this. Meaning that I'm not saying that there is a consensus, or I'm not saying that there isn't a consensus. I'm just saying that there are famous Asharis who might subscribe or who do subscribe to this view, which is different from saying that there's a consensus within the Asharis that this view is true.
yeah. So basically, okay. So the people within this, like Adhita, right? The Adhita is going to be the belief, right? They still hold if they're still affirmative of that, right? So basically, what you're saying is just implying. I'm not saying you're directly saying this, right? I'm not saying
It's not.
you made.
Wait. Let me just give you an example. Let me just give you an example. Wait, one sec. Wait. So let's say that we have the Catholic population, and then we have the Catholic population, right? And then within the Catholic population, I say that there are 3 famous Catholics. So let's just say that I don't know, Augustine, Bonaventure, and Justin Martyr, I don't know, believe in some proposition. And I say that there are 3 famous Catholics who believe this. this does not mean that there is a consensus of Catholics that believe that. In fact, that's evident throughout the world. Just because famous people affirm it doesn't imply that there's going to be a consent. There might be some correlation in a certain amount of beliefs, but it doesn't mean that the whole population or the wide amount of the population affirms it.
Yeah, I get that. Like, I get that. Like what I was saying to the Ashari thing, right? I don't. Do you think I said like a universal quantifier for that specific token distinction between the other sects, and then the Ashari only have like the universal quantifier there? Do you think I said that or no?
I don't think you made a claim about universal quantifier. No.
We could just move this past this point, I guess. Like, do you want to like conclude? Because like my time is
No, we can
almost
just
up.
we can just go to another. We can just move past this point and go to another point because this point is kind of useless. But again, as I'm saying, it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
It,
Can we just?
it doesn't really matter. But also, from what I'm hearing, all sects aside all like denominations or sects aside from the Mutazilites, they hold that the Quran is an attribute of Allah.
Well, that's fine, I guess. We could just move on into if like the Quran is going to be like a composite of Allah's ontology, I guess.
What did you say?
I said we can move on to like if the Quran is going to be like a composite of Allah's ontology.
Okay. Well, it's always going to be a real part of Allah, because if it wasn't a real part of Allah, then what the claim that these guys would be making would just be contradictory. It has to be a real part of Allah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they could be contradictory. They could just have like a false interpretation of Islam.
Oh my God. It's a reductio ad absurdum. So we're assuming the claim is true to then prove that the claim is false. So what I'm simply just saying is just that they are affirming that it is. So what we're disagreeing on right now, I believe, is if they affirm that it's a real part of Allah, and I'm saying that they do affirm that it's a real part of Allah.
No. We're not. No, that's not a token decision.
I'm not gonna argue with you on whether it's actually true. I'm not gonna argue with you whether on whether Allah actually has the Quran as one of his parts. It's something called an internal critique. So I'm not gonna argue with you on that. What I'm going to argue with you is whether they affirm, because I'm assuming that specific type of Islam, and I'm assuming it to be true. So what I'm going to discuss with you on is whether they affirm that it's a real part of Allah, not whether it's actually true that it's a real part of Allah. I'm not doing an external critique, I'm doing an internal critique.
Yeah, okay. So yeah. Sure, I guess. So basically, like, if you want to just conclude, I guess, because you're going nowhere.
I mean, you can talk about like something else that you have a problem with.
There's not much. I only want to do the modal kalam collapse. That's about it.
Oh, well, the reason I think it's true is just that, well, since these types of Islam hold that it subsists, they don't even just hold that it's an attribute of Allah, they hold that it subsists within its essence. And to say that something subsists within an essence is to say that it's an essential attribute of it. And so if it's just the case that the Quran exists as a part that subsists within its essence, then it's obviously the case that it's an essential part of Allah, meaning that Allah has some contingent parts which are essential to it.
Yeah, so I'm just explaining the problem is that even if, let's just say, we grant that the Quran can be like, let's just say eternal, etc., right? That doesn't change the fact it's still just gonna be like a product of Allah's like speech, right? So we know Allah's speech, right, is gonna be an attribute to his essence, right? Do you agree with that? Do you agree on that condition?
Wait, can you repeat that again? Sorry.
Do you agree with the condition that speech is a part of Allah's essence?
Speech, I don't know what the question means, really.
Yeah, so the question I'm asking is, do you think speech is going to be like
I don't. That's the problem. Wait one second. You're not understanding what I'm saying.
No. I don't understand what I'm saying. You're one of these specific questions I'm trying to clarify. What I'm saying is that do you think speech is an attribute or rather just a part of Allah's nature, which is just
I don't
essence
know.
to God?
I don't
Do
know.
you think
I don't know
basically
why
the
you're.
speech
Wait one sec. One sec. Wait one sec. One sec. One sec. I don't know why you're asking me because again, I am not saying that I hold a definitive position on this. I'm saying that I'm doing internal critique, meaning I'm going by what
we
the
get that. We
type of Islam
basically
that I'm attacking
I
said.
am asking
Wait
this
one
question.
sec, bro. One sec, bro. One sec. I'm saying that I'm going by the type of Islam that I'm attacking. I'm not saying that I hold a specific belief in relation to this. So if the Asharis believe that, if the Asharis believe that speech is an eternal, it is an essential part of Allah's essence, I'd say that they would believe that. Yeah.
Okay, so we get that. Also, I'm just gonna go off the definite position type thing you said right there. I think that's just a straw man to my question, like trying to directly like make another direct, like different type of argumentation as to why that question is being applied. The reason why I'm implying this question is because let's just say you're saying like for the sake of the argumentation that you think that the Ashari is going to be the true Islam, like you stated before, right? Basically, if speech is going to be a part of Allah's essence, right? The Quran is a product of Allah's speech and will. Basically, if the Quran is going to be a product of that speech and will, it's not going to be formed from that
The
like
Asharis believe that it's uncreated and eternal, meaning
that's
that
cool.
Allah didn't start speaking.
That's cool. We can just grant that they believe that, but I'm trying to like describe or give some form of justification as the reason why this belief is not going to be held as secular.
Look, mate. I'm not arguing with you on whether the belief is true. I'm arguing with you on whether the Asharis hold this belief. And it's clear that the Asharis do hold this belief. I don't know how to
Okay,
tell you.
so now we're just changing that, right? It was a belief about if they hold this true, and now you're saying if they hold this belief, that's two distinct token distinct to the categories.
No, oh my, wait, one sec. No,
You change it.
I just told you that I'm not arguing with you on whether the belief is actually true. I'm arguing with you whether the Asharis hold this belief, and the Asharis do clearly hold this belief. I don't know how many times I'm going to tell you. It's an internal critique. It's an internal critique.
Okay, we get that, but again, right? I'll just go off this topic again. I'll just repeat. Basically, if they hold this belief, right? You also stated if they hold this belief to be the truth, since you're taking the Ashari position to be true, right? It's just going to imply that for the sake of the argumentation, the modal
No, I'm
kalam.
not taking the Ashari.
No.
Wait one second. I'm not taking it to be true. I said that we're assuming it to be true to then prove that
Yeah,
it's false. It's reductio ad absurdum.
that's gonna be a sake for the argumentation. That's just a straw man and not sequitur. Like, oh my gosh. So like, anyways, I'll just go on to repeat what I
How
said.
is it a
You said
straw man?
because I wasn't saying you take this like directly to be true. I'm saying for the sake of the argumentation, for the sake of modal kalam collapse. Not you, not Rizhan as individual, to the argumentation created by Rizhan the individual. So we're doing this for the sake of the argumentation to see if this argument holds strong, right? Right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. So if the Quran is going to be contingent upon the properties of his speech and will, it was basically messages sent down to the Prophet Muhammad, may peace be upon him, right? That basically just entails it's going to be distinct from Allah's essence because it's coming from Allah's essence. It's not a part of his essence. It's just going to be a contradiction saying that it's going to be a part of his essence, but it's coming from his essence because it was
Okay, I don't care. Why would this be
okay, but
relevant to me?
that's the point which makes your argumentation strong, which is the Quran part. If you don't care, then you're basically saying you don't care about the stance of
No,
your
oh
argumentation.
my god,
That's fine.
wait,
That's
oh
fine.
my
We
god.
can just
Wait, You, okay, this is actually just getting annoying. You can believe that the Quran is not an essential attribute of Allah. You can believe that. I don't care. And it doesn't have to be true in reality which is why earlier I referred to theoretical possibilities and theoretical truths. It doesn't have to be true in reality that the Ash'ari position is true or that the Quran is an essential part of Allah. What I'm doing now is simply just an internal critique. So I'm saying that there's an absurdity entailed from the Ash'ari position. I don't care on whether it's actually true or not, or whether you can find a contradiction in the Ash'ari in the position that the Quran is an essential attribute of Allah. The Quran subsists inside of Allah's essence. I don't care about that. All I care about is internally. It is by using an internal critique to internally show that there is an absurdity entailed by the Quranic, by the Ash'arite position. That's all I'm saying. I don't care on whether you can create some kind of argument to independent of a reductio ad absurdum to show that the Quran is not an essential part of Allah. I don't care.
Okay, so again, you're just shoving in what I'm saying. I'm not talking about if it's going to be true within reality. I'm not talking about if you try this and that. I'm talking about for the sake of your argumentation. The sake of your argumentation, since we're arguing if this can be separate or not, the argumentation itself, right? I wanted to argue upon moral collapse, right? You're using the reductio to assume that the Ash'ari position is going to be the truth, right? Your argumentation